So Dallin H. Oaks versus Trump. Dallin H. Oaks gave a really powerful talk. He is always great. His talks are proving to be perfect for our time. Defending the Constitution, his other one about loving your enemies, perfect for even the political themes happening today. And Trump put out a tweet this morning, which was pretty bad. And I couldn't help but think of that as President Oaks was talking about being a peacemaker. And I wanted to kind of share and contrast these, but also share a bit of background stuff to some of the things he mentioned in his talk that I think is important. So Trump tweeted this morning, Tuesday will be power plant day and bridge day all wrapped up in one in Iran. And he's talking about blowing up civilian infrastructure, which is debatably a war crime because civilians depend on these things. And he goes on further, there will be nothing like it. Open up the freaking strait. Freaking is the Latter-day Saint substitute word for fudging. You crazy, I don't know what the LDS word is for that one, but or you'll be living in hell. Hell's fine to say. I'm joking, of course. Just watch. Praise be to Allah, President Donald J. Trump. So here he is threatening these people. Of course, he's threatening the government, but there's people involved and really strong rhetoric involved here. Contrast that with President Oaks' talk. And man, President Oaks said, he talked about this time we live in of toxicity and contempt toward adversaries.
Many current writers characterize the time in which we live as toxic, a time of contempt or hostility toward adversaries.
Now, if you get into politics, like everyone's kind of doing this, and the question is, how do you talk about politics without being rude, right? I think he kind of gets at this in one of his other later on when he talks about being a peacemaker. He says, don't use harshful words or hurtful words.
How it would change the world if followers of Christ would forego harsh and hurtful words in all their communications.
To me, that just means to, calmly talk about the truth. And everyone needs to do it. I even need to do it. I think it's important to point out things like this. I don't think many of us should let it just fly by and forget about it and hope it disappears. Someone needs to talk about this stuff, right? But even I can work on talking about it in a more calmer, peaceful way. And I'll work on that. Some of this other stuff, President Oaks said, to love your enemies, bless them that curse you, do good to them that hate you. Like, bless them that curse you. People in Iran chant death to America. Should we chant death to Iran back, or should we take Christ's teachings to heart and figure out a different way to respond in a tweet or something like that? Pray for them which despitefully use you and persecute you. And this part was really interesting in President Oaks' talk. He kind of goes out of his way to asking us who are our enemies. And he kind of just inserts this thing where it says, this includes military foes.
The full meaning of enemies in the sources from which King James translators chose the word enemies included military foes.
And that hits hard right now because we're in the midst of a war, a not war, an operation, not an operation, 1 to 2 weeks to a month to longer, to no money, to $1 billion a day, to I need $1 trillion to do this. So that is really interesting that President Oaks brought this up. But it goes down on a more personal level between how we communicate with people online.
But even extends to any who actively oppose one another.
Yeah, moving on, he talks about how we should love all of God's children. And he shares a quote by Howard W. Hunter about sharing the pure love of Christ. And then he kind of goes out of his way in saying something about a government democracy means fairness for all.
In a democratic government, we should seek fairness for all.
And if you've read this book, you might understand what he's getting to there. I shared about this in my last video. Really quick, Jonathan Rauch, he's a atheist, gay, liberal, constitutional scholar, Jewish. He recognizes that for the Constitution to succeed, we need morality. And he admits, as an atheist, that liberalism can't do that. Liberalism is a tool. It's not meant to become like a belief system. And he admits we need Christianity to help democracy and the Constitution succeed. And so he promotes Christianity, but he shares how Christianity is starting to fail us. There's no excuse for Christians to have been so offended by liberals, by wokeism, to elect Donald Trump, to basically, for conservatives and the GOP and Republicans to sell their soul to Trump to attack liberalism. And honestly, you see this in a lot of Christian and even LDS video podcasts today, where people are just so obsessed with going after DEI and woke stuff. And I get going after that, but kind of this obsession going after it, and then the excuse to put aside Christian ideals and attack people. I think that's what President Oaks is getting here. He even, in that earlier quote, remember, he says, all this hostility involving many whose Christians' beliefs should orient them otherwise.
Many whose Christian beliefs should orient them otherwise.
Okay, going back to this book, he talks about how Christians don't really have an excuse for abandoning their beliefs and kind of the Constitution, for going after liberals. And basically, you have liberalism and you have post-liberalism. Post-liberalism is basically anti-liberalism. It's basically against what people think liberalism caused, which was abandoning traditions and values and things like that, but becoming so against it. And that's the big movement right now. That's pretty much what MAGA is right now. But it's more based off of anger, bitterness, and fear than it is trying to work together. And basically, if MAGA was to take control, pluralism wouldn't exist. There would be more of this authoritarianism ideal there that would quash different groups, different beliefs, different minorities. I think it would even quash Latter-day Saints, because this MAGA movement is largely fueled by white evangelicals. That's not the, I'm not, I think there's great evangelicals out there, but this is just pointing out that the evangelical movement has basically become kind of a political movement. I think if it was to take charge, it would even try to quash Latter-day Saints, because white evangelicals have been kind of the most anti-Mormon group out there online. Again, white evangelicals, that's just a generic term. I used it in the video just before this because even researchers use that term. I think there's great evangelicals out there. So anyways, if MAGA was to take control, it'd become more of an authoritarian regime, which we're seeing because they would want to force their ideals on other people. Two different ends of the spectrum, two extremes, right? An extreme on the left and an extreme on the right. And this guy talks about that. And he talks about Dallin H. Oaks. There's a whole chapter in this praising Dallin H. Oaks and the themes Dallin H. Oaks has pushed in legal battles through the church. He points out, I hinted a bit about this in my last video, but he points out, I think it's called the fairness for all. I can't remember, but those words were used. And here we have Dallin H. Oaks using those words here. It's this reference. And this bill, this was a Utah bill that created fairness for LGBT people and religious groups at the same time. Fairness for all, not fairness for one. That's what President Oaks is getting at here. And so there's a lot under this talk. If you read this book, I keep recommending this book. If you guys have any other books that you recommend similar to this, please let me know. I'll do a whole video about it later. So anyways, two very different perspectives of war. I did a reel earlier how the Book of Mormon is very kind of, its theology is more of a defensive theology about war, not an offensive. It even goes to some lengths of pointing out if you go and attack people without cause, that'll work against you. I understand with the Iran war, there's way more debate than than my simple way of viewing it. But I mean, this tweet here, destroying civilian plants and bridges and opening the effing strait, you crazy bees, or you'll go to living hell. I think we need to, as Latter-day Saints, rethink our support for Trump. Pray hard that there'll be a resolution to this, but also kind of work hard to defend the Constitution. President Oaks has asked us to do that, and it could be as simple as voting this November to add some checks and balances to the system. Even if you're not Democrat, I plan on voting Democrat just to add some checks and balances. I don't agree with everything Democrats say. And if you go read President Oaks defending the Constitution talk, he specifically says it's okay to vote for other parties. It's not every party has everything you need. And sometimes you need to vote for a party that you don't agree with. And I'm applying it this way. That's just how I'm interpreting his words. He's generic. He's teaching principles, and I'm here trying to apply them. And you guys apply them however you want. You might think differently. You might think it works the other way. I'm just kind of pointing out here, there's kind of some obvious confliction here between what Oaks is saying and what Trump is saying. And you guys choose for yourself. I hope this helps. I hope some of this background helps and some of this insight. I hope to do a lot more of these. Please subscribe. Please share. It's a little channel right now. I'm not going to be all about politics. I'm going to go into a lot of Native American history. Just got this one, The Rediscovery of America. A ton of books to read. My goal is to get them all done this year and share them with you guys, but we'll see. Thanks. Bye.